In this video, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, the thing that none of us ever talk about with other people, but that we all constantly think about, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And that is the expectations we have upon ourselves. The I should do this, I must do that, and why it can very quickly lead to overwhelm. I'm Desh. I'm a qualified counsellor who has supported many clients in developing their own self-awareness, and in this video I want to talk about the I should thoughts or I must thoughts. Those thoughts that set an expectation of what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to behave, what expectations we have to meet, what role we're playing. The kind of thoughts that we have that we put on ourselves to meet a certain obligation. We feel obligated to act in a certain way. And if we don't act in that way, then it's a bad thing. We might be being a bad person, we might be uncaring, or we're not doing what we feel is our obligation or our duty to do. Now, naturally, we're all going to have those thoughts that you must do this or you should do that when it comes to kind of the way you carry ourselves in our lives, the way we treat our family members, or if we're in a relationship, the way we treat our partner, or the way we treat our friends. I mean, it really depends upon the context of why you're having those thoughts. So it's understandable why you have the thoughts of I should do this, I must do that. But where it gets to be a problem is when you are setting yourself a standard that you find is only being met after you sacrifice something that's important to you. So I'd like to share a personal example. So I've undergone therapy myself, and in my therapy sessions I've shared the fact that I have these thoughts that, I must do this, I must be studying really hard, or I should help my family out. There's this expectation I put on myself. But I never really thought of it as an expectation. I just had these thoughts that were weighing on my mind, and the only way for me to get rid of the thoughts was just to do the thing. So in my case, it was being there for my family, even if it meant eating into my own time. And she said, where's that thought coming from? The thought that you should be there for your family, where's it coming from? And that kind of threw me off. I didn't quite know how to answer that. I just said, well, it's what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, but where did it come from? Why are you thinking that? Why don't you have the thought that you can do what you want and that it's fine? There is no obligation for you to be there for your family and sacrifice your own time. That you can have your own time but choose to spend time with your family when you want to. Like, who said you should? Who said you should do this? And it got me thinking, I don't know. I just know I think this way, and the impact that thought had was it led me to wanting to basically be there for my family. But was I genuinely being there for them, or was it because I was just wanting to get rid of the thought and kind of tick a box in my own mind? And then I ended up linking it back to my past, where I always had this expectation that I was expected to fulfill a certain role in the family, that people always expected me to behave in a certain way. And if I was deviating, I would be ridiculed for that. I would be judged for that. So I eventually linked together that the reason I've got these thoughts is because I've inherited it from the people who had certain expectations of me. And the only way not to get judged was to meet those expectations. And just over time, I've inherited that as my thought process, that I have to do things for other people. I should do this, I must do that. But I never really questioned where that came from. So I hope on some level you can resonate with this if you're having similar thoughts where you should do something, I must do this, and that feeling that you can't settle, you can't be relaxed until you do that thing. Well, is it because you genuinely want to do it? Is it a choice? Do you feel autonomous in being able to choose willingly that you want to do this thing and approach it with creativity and excitement? Or are you just doing that thing because you want to get rid of the anxiety you're feeling as a result of the thought? So these should thoughts and must thoughts are all a result of the expectations you're placing on yourself that you may not realize you're placing on yourself. You see it as an obligation. I have these thoughts, I must do this. But let's just stop. Question, why do you have that thought in the first place? Like, when did this thoughts first appear? Does it resonate with anything anyone's told you? Why are you placing that expectation on yourself? Particularly if you feel that addressing that thought will mean you feel positive on the other end of it. So let's say you have a thought, in my case, which was to be there and support my family. which I did. Even though there were times I didn't feel like it, I still supported them, and it ate into my own time. So I was encroaching on my own boundaries and bending them in order to satisfy the needs of my family. And that made me feel peaceful. But it didn't make me actually feel peaceful. It was simply because that thought of I should do this went. It was satisfied and it moved away. So it gave me the impression that I felt peaceful, but actually it wasn't that I felt peaceful. I just no longer felt anxious. And those are two very different things. Feeling contentment and peaceful is different than not feeling anxious. Because when we feel anxious, it's so unpleasant that once that anxiety goes away, it feels nice. But is it because you genuinely wanted to do that thing, or were you just driven to get rid of your own anxiety? So if you notice you have any thoughts that I should do this, I must do that, question them. Why must you? Who said you must? Who said you should? Whose standards are these that you're meeting? And if you've consciously placed these thoughts there, if you've consciously put these thoughts in place that you have to meet, then what is that criteria based on? Is it based on goals that you've consciously thought of and therefore you've put the stepping stones in place? Because that's a different thing. You've consciously thought about what goal you want to reach, and you put things in place that are going to help you to get that goal. You know, for example, I need to lose 10 kilograms. Okay, well, I should avoid all sugar or carbs. You know, there's a very clear protocol for how you get to that goal. But if you're having these thoughts that are just there, that don't really necessarily lead to a particular goal, you need to question them, particularly if it impacts your emotional well-being. So if you find yourself having those kind of thoughts, then question them. I can't overstate the importance of questioning the thoughts you have, particularly if they lead you towards doing things that do not align with how you really feel or what you really want to achieve. If you're doing things out of a sense of obligation, the sense that you have to, then question, why do I have to? What is this about? What would happen if I didn't follow those thoughts? How would I feel? And what would happen if I just sat with that feeling a bit longer? Would anything bad really happen? So it's about really staying with the thoughts you have and the discomfort it generates and where it comes from. Because it's only through slowing down and staying with the thoughts and becoming self-aware of what's happening that you're able to make a shift towards living the life that you want to. Even if it's something as simple as just not following these thoughts that are just existing without a clear purpose. Comment below on what your experiences are of having those thoughts of I should do this, I must do that. I'd love to hear from you. Please like and subscribe. There's going to be more content coming out soon.